Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Everybody's getting off from work on this wonderful Thursday. You guys are heading to the hill. Some of you have taken off for Friday. You got enough PTO, you got enough time off in order to take off the next Friday for the next 3 or 4 months. You are enjoying your time off as we get into some of the better weather here. Coming out the midst of spring and into the full-grown temperatures of summer. So I do thank you for sharing part of your Thursday with me. So we can kind of break down and contextualize emotional intelligence. And I think it's very important we talk about emotional intelligence because I hear this conversation occurring everywhere I go. At the grocery store, at the cigar lounge, on Clubhouse, on Facebook. This whole term emotional intelligence is really taken off here in probably the past 2 or 3 years. Not that I was avoiding the conversation, but I didn't think it was that important up until now. So emotional intelligence. We're going to break this down. We're going to give, of course, the basic definition of what emotional intelligence is. And do you have emotional intelligence? Can you train to have emotional intelligence? Can you be taught emotional intelligence? And why is it important at all? I know a lot of you ask yourself this very same question. Emotional intelligence, what the hell is that? Is it something that you are inherently born with? Is it something that you just pick up from getting older? Is it something that can be trained in some form of manner? Of course, these are some of the questions that you're asking yourself. And some of you will feel as though you have already arrived, like you have emotional intelligence. Here's another question. Who is the emotional intelligent police? Who determines if you have emotional intelligence or not? Who determines that? The other person you may be speaking to? Is there some sort of poll? Is there some sort of test that we can take for emotional intelligence? I don't know. I don't have an idea of what it could be. Excuse me as I'm still sniffling from this week. Just getting over a small little cold, 24-hour cold supposedly. Still lingering here. But anyway, with that being said, let's first define what emotional intelligence is. I think it's important that we always define things of how society in general terms define a lot of these quote unquote key or hot words that we use to explain why someone is a hothead, why someone show discipline and behave themselves, whether they are a teenager, an adolescent, or even an adult. So with that being said, emotional intelligence, according to the helpguide.org, the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict. Good afternoon, Christopher Clayton. Nice to see you, brother. I haven't seen you tuned in too much, but I'm glad to see you today. And excuse me as I'm sniffling and wiping in here. So do apologize on that. But I wanted to break down this particular topic of emotional intelligence. I'm not going to try to draw it out too long. But as we're looking at the definition here, just listen to my voice about how I look at emotional intelligence on a very intellectual on an intellectual level. Because when I look at it, it kind of refers to the ability to perceive, control, and elevate your emotions. To me, it refers to the ability to perceive, control, and elevate your emotions. And believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, supposedly emotional intelligence can be learned and strengthened. Now, I could be a testament to it because over the course of my years, I believe that I have a high level of emotional intelligence. The very same thing you see, the ability to understand, use, and manage my own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communication effectively, and empathize with others and overcome challenges and diffuse conflict. Now, some of you may not agree with what I'm about to say, but let me tell you this. There are some elements of passive aggressiveness that to me is a form of emotional intelligence. The reason why I say that is because how many times you wanted to curse someone out, but you knew that wouldn't be positive for the conversation. You know that wouldn't bring the conversation forward. But you then became slightly passive aggressive to kind of shoot your shot, but not to disrupt the entire conversation, right? You felt some anger, you felt some anxiousness, you felt some stress, you wanted to lash out, but your emotional intelligence calmed you down and you said something real slick. This out of the blue, it could be somewhat related, but you said something on the lines of, yeah, and that's why I always fill up my car with gas, right? And you know that's a shot at the other person because maybe you know they ran out of gas by driving, or it could be a mist of things, a slew of things. But the point I'm getting at, being passive aggressive in some forms of a matter could be a form of emotional intelligence. It absolutely could be, because again, what I believe how emotional intelligence is refers to the ability to perceive, control, and elevate your emotions. The ability to express and control emotions is very, very essential. Because this is one of the same things that lands you in jail or keeps you out of jail, is having a certain tolerant level of emotional intelligence. Because at first we used to be very simple, right? We used to just say tolerance. I can tolerate but so much. You have people who can tolerate a lot less than other people who can tolerate a lot more. That's emotional intelligence, is it not? The ability to tolerate things. Then another piece of toleration is the way you tolerate it. Is it negative or is it positive? There's really no in between. I mean, you can take it both ways, but there's really no in between. At one point in time in your life, your brain, your mind, you are going to decide whether that was positive or negative. That's what's going to decide. Brother, I'm glad to see you back. I'm glad that you are still going through some things, because we understand that life could be very short. Okay, I'm hearing some rumors about Kevin Samuels had a cardiac arrest. This is a rumor, allegedly. We don't know that to be true just yet. But, you know, he was a big icon and millionaire, and hopefully he's doing okay. But if not, God bless his soul. But things like that can just tell you, you go at any time. So if you are going through something, number one, that's a good thing. Then number two, as a man, logically, you're thinking about how can you get out of that thing. Emotional intelligence. They say that men are quick to anger three times faster than women. That's what's out there. 2 to 3 times faster than women. Men are prone to fighting. Men are prone to some sort of physical altercation, because supposedly our emotional intelligence level is lower than women. Women can bicker back and forth, but never throw a blow. That's what I'm getting at. I didn't grow up in that type of neighborhood. I saw women fight, but I get it. For the for the vast majority of people, that what occurs in those neighborhoods. I get it. But I think it's important that we keep an eye on the book definition, so-called, of emotional intelligence. Because I want to beat the drum on this, the way I look at emotional intelligence, family, because I believe it's the ability to perceive the way you look at things and control the way you can shift and position things and elevate your emotions, meaning you understand every segment, every section of the situation, verbally, psychologically, physically, or what you're going through, because that is what driving you are your emotions. So how are you perceiving it? Then in the manner in which you perceive it, how are you going to control it? That's the part I love the best, because then you got the plan, you got the map, and now you're about to execute. Here's the thing. Let me say it on a different tone. You perceive the situation to be bad, but because you have a high tolerance level, or you are on a high level of emotional intelligence, you take your perception, you transform it, and you control what you think. You control how you feel and make it a positive situation. And of course, what if it was a positive situation and you kept it positive? How do you control yourself in certain situations of high stress, high anxiety, being in depression? How are you controlling what you feel? What people are saying nowadays is not that people are weak-minded. They're saying you have no emotional intelligence. You register on a very low level of emotional intelligence, and you do not know how to control yourself. Your tolerance level is so low, you jump right into action. Let me tell you what going to 8 years of therapy taught me. Roughly around 10 years of therapy really showed me and taught me that every now and again throughout your life, you actually need someone to share everything you have done in your entire life, just to get it off your chest, or it will really boggle up your mind. Then number 2, you control how you feel. You do. You control how you feel, no ifs and buts about it. Now, other than some physical attributes, or you worked out last night and you're sore and you cramped, or you didn't drink enough water and your leg locked, other than your muscular and skeleton and physical being, as far as your spiritual and emotional self, you control that 100%. There could be other things like a family death, a family accident. You was traumatized. You went to war. There's a lot of things that you can alter in your mind, that you can control in your mind to put you in a better position emotionally, how you feel, in order to essentially transform your entire day. I want you thinking about that. I want you to think about that you were sleeping 3 a.m. at night. You had to get up to pee. You didn't really want to get up to pee because you knew it was going to mess up your sleep, but you were already awake. You was thinking this thing, oh, I got to pee. I don't want to get up. I hope I can fall back to sleep. But all this time you're wasting, right? And then when you get up, you're pissed off. And then you go back to sleep eventually, or you didn't, right? It's 3 a.m. Like, man, I got to get up in 2 hours. I might as well turn on the TV, right? Or you fell back to sleep. And then when you got up, you had an attitude, because the only thing you can remember is that you had to wake up at 3 and you didn't get your normal 6 to 8 hours of sleep. And so you're going to have a bad day. Oh, I woke up too early. I'm going to have a bad day. Or you and your husband, you and your wife get into an argument that morning before work. Either you work home or you actually travel. You take that argument in your car, and that's the only thing you're thinking about. You take that argument on your job, and that's the only thing you're thinking about. So your entire day is screwed, is jacked up, is messed up. It's been totally decimated by your emotions, by your thoughts, because you could have went out the house saying, I love that woman. I don't care what we go through. You can be cheerful. You can be spirited. You can be uplifting to yourself. This is how you control your emotions. You allow everything to enter you and control you. And then you blame it that it was your emotions. You got outside of your character. You got outside of yourself. You got outside your body. But you have the ability to control those things, but you will like to make excuses for the mistakes that you make. Because the one thing I know, before I yelled, before I used profanity in a situation where I shouldn't, before I got physical, I had a thought. And in that thought, I became very weak. And this is why emotional intelligence can be strengthened, because you become very weak. And instead of respond verbally, you reacted in a different manner. You became abusive, whether it be male or female, you became abusive in that situation. But I guarantee you had that thought. And this is why I know that each and every one of you could control yourselves. You can control exactly what you do and what you don't do, what you say and what you don't say, because before you say it and before you do it, there's a thought that runs across your mind. And in that thought, you have a decision to make. And in that decision, if you're weak, most times than not, you're going to respond wrongly. But if you are strong, or if you're strengthening yourself, you're going to respond positively. Let's take, for instance, my wife and I, just like any other married couple, we get in verbal discord and disagreements and what they would call as an argument. But our arguments never get to a point where we're using profanity and we're hooping and hollering all across the darn house. Yes, every now and again we'll raise our voice because we are in our emotions. And because we love one another, all our guards are down. We're all our guards are down. We're not thinking about them. We just giving our other person everything we got. But even in that instinct, we are still operating on a higher plane of existence of emotional intelligence, because we love one another. We respect one another. So when I hear people hooping and hollering, smacking and flipping and punching and all sorts of all these crazy things, and they say, well, my emotions got the best of me, that is bull. You was childish in your emotions. You was childish in your actions. And now you should go to town, and that's called jail. Don't let nobody tell you that you can't control yourself. Let me tell you why. And I know I'm blowing emotional intelligence up to a whole different level, but let me tell you why. If you can't control yourself, then you belong two places. Two places. If you're still alive, you belong in two places if you cannot control yourself, and that's emotional intelligence. You just blabbing out the mouth, using all sorts of profane words at your significant other or family member or a friend or even a stranger. This is what you're doing. That is not really needed. That can really cause more harm than good. Two places. One, you belong in jail. You belong in prison. Because that's what the lack of emotional intelligence will eventually get you in the wrong situation. Number two, you belong in a psychiatric hospital or ward. Because if you can't control yourself, then who can? Who can control you other than yourself? See, when I look at this very basic definition here, the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotion in a positive way to relieve stress. No, it should really be the ability to understand how to channel and control self-control or something like that. Because this is what this boils down to. Not letting the little things get to you. Not let the little small things build up and explode in your face. No, none of that. Or rather, don't let the big things affect you. There's many times in my life been with other people in certain situations where I should have lost my mind. I remember speaking about my ex-wife today to my wife. There's times where I know other men would have put hands on this woman, would have probably blew up the house, would have talked to her 1000% crazy, but I never did. Until this day, she can't say he cursed me out because I'm not that type of person, because even then I understood how important it is of tolerance of another person, and that how my response can start a chain reaction that I probably can't stop. That my action can start a chain reaction of something that I probably never wanted it to occur. Emotional intelligence. My brother Christopher says here, depression is what I've gone through these last few months. I dealt with it through alcohol and eating too much. I said enough. I had to admit this is a problem I need to get help with. Well, brother, believe when I tell you this. You're not alone in the struggle. A lot of us have been going through a lot of things. A lot of people are getting that help. I'm glad you're out there getting your help, brother. I help you continue to get your help until you feel as though you're ready to move on. He says that he's now in therapy and working on making my life better. Congratulations, brother. Your life is better. Congratulations, Chris. Your life is better. Your life is better because you're taking a chance on yourself and you said, this is not me. I'm going to go and get help. I'm going to go to a facility. I'm going to go to a specialist. I'm going to go to someone to talk to iron out some of these issues in my life, because you understood, you recognized the state that you were in called depression, meaning down, feeling like your spirit, your soul is heavy. Feel like too much weight to carry. You can't bear the weight. There's just too much on your shoulder. Everything is tight. You feel like you can't breathe. You're suffocated. You can't move. You're paralyzed. I know exactly what you feel. I know exactly what you feel, brother. And I'm still here today. If you would probably ask anybody I know, I'm the biggest jokester because I am always in just a really good mood. There's very few times I'm not in a good mood. If I'm not in a good mood, I'm probably sick. Like the other day, I wasn't in a good mood. My wife thought I was faking. Like, why does women always think I'm faking when I'm sick? But she does. That's her. But it's cool. But I wasn't like in my typical upbeat mood. So my wife was like, "Babe, I'm glad you up and around," because that's how she usually see me. I'm up and around. I'm doing something. Chris says here, it was a struggle, but I'm glad I'm getting the help I need. Indeed, brother, indeed. And I'm glad that a lot of us are coming out as men and really just making it known that we're getting help and that we needed help. Because Generation X, millennials, we kind of grew up in a weird timeline where we were told to be tough, and part of our family said men don't cry. The other part said it's okay to cry. So we're kind of 50-50 on that. And we was in a time where no man could be psychologically wrong because men are the most logical creatures, right? So how can logical people become illogical and feel depressed with anxiety? Like that's some sort of emotional intelligence problem, or is it a psychological problem? But nonetheless, you get very confused when we talk about these things because people are just trying to mold it until they want it to be, essentially. But when you realize you have a problem and then you go get help, I know for me, it was the best thing I could ever do in my life. It was one of the best things I can do in my life. And here's another thing I found out too, family. When I went to therapy, the therapist told me something so wild, so crazy, it blew my mind. And I said, you know what? I would like to say it's complex, but it's the most simplest thing you ever will hear, is that every problem in your life, listen to this, every problem in your life, you created. You created every problem in your life. Now, there are some exceptions, like, you got cancer or something like that, or accident. But the therapist was like, everything in your life you created. And I was like, well, how did I create the problems with my marriage? You married her, right? You created the problem. If you would have never got married, you would have never had that problem. Huh? I guess that makes sense, right? But I got it. You had to think on a very high level, right? You had to go to the pinnacle of the point of the therapist and what they were trying to make. You are the initiator of all your problems. Take, for instance, I get a credit card when I was in college, a Discover card. I had $5,000 limit on it. I had the card for 7 days. I'm a Black inner city school dude from DC, and I have $5,000 on a credit card. And this is back in the late 90s. Let me tell you, if I got that credit card on Monday, that credit card was $5,000 in debt by Sunday. How much was on the card? What was the limit of the card? $5,000. How much was I in debt after 7 days? $5,000. So now I got debt issues, right? So let's just take, for instance, I got all these other bills. A lot of them are part of collections. And now I'm going to the therapist. Oh man, I'm handling so much. Yeah, man, I'm not having a good time in my marriage. My wife is treating me like this. You know, I made all these promises. I can't come through with it. And that's carrying over into the job. So I got marital problems. I got on the job problems. Who created those problems? Who created those problems? You did. That's who. You created the problem. Just like I created my problems. And when you realize, here it goes, family, and when you realize that you created the problem, you realize that you are the solution. See, here's the problem. When you go to therapy and you got debt issues, you got relationship issues, you got family issues, you feel powerless. You feel like it's everybody else's fault. You say, well, man, if I got family issues, me and my sister beefing, or my grandmother just died, we trying to figure out who gonna pay it. I said, this is where the cold-blooded emotional intelligent thing to go on. You make a decision. Let's just take for grandma passed, and now there's so much stress in the family because we don't have the money to pay for a burial. Emotional intelligence, if you really want to operate on this high level, is either one or two things you're going to do. One, you're going to figure out how to come up with the money. People work extra jobs, rake grass, cut grass, whatever you're going to do. Or you're going to make a decision not to do anything. You're going to make a decision to do something, and you're going to make a decision not to do something. And you have to be steadfast in your decision. If you know you can't do nothing financially, you don't have extra time to do nothing financially, then pray whatever God you have. You want to, hey, whatever it may be in your religion, let the dead bury the dead. And somebody said, man, that's cruel. How are you going to operate at a higher level? How are you going to operate at a higher level if you truly don't understand that you create your own problems mentally? You create your own problems mentally. You tell yourself, believe it or not, family, you tell yourself that the thing that you're thinking about is causing you stress. But you can actually tell yourself the difference. You're going through a death, you're going through this, but you can actually tell yourself a difference. Some people might say you're putting up a mental guard, that you'll have to let that down. No, a lot of times, again, operating at a high level, a lot of times you make a decision before stress starts to happen. Or within your stress, you make a decision so you can stop the level of stress. See, emotional intelligence is just not communicating effectively. It's about stress. It's about pain. It's about perception. It's about control. So all of these things you have to look at, family, when we're talking about emotional intelligence. And nobody wants to tell you, like, hey, want you to make a decision that you don't have enough money to pay to bury grandma, and that you have to continue to live your life there's nothing you essentially can do, then I'm gonna tell you right now, family, down with the definition, with the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in positive ways. That's not what you want to do. You might not be positive, but I can tell you this. You can have the ability to perceive the way you look at things, the way you control and how you move and position things, to elevate your emotions to the fact where it does not bother you. Not that you won't mourn for your grandmother, but it doesn't bother you that you don't have the funds to pay for her burial. Here's another one. And you not being affected that you don't have the finances and feel guilt behind that, and feel depressed and anxiety behind that. No, grandma is dead. I'm gonna miss my grandma, but I do not have the finances to give money, to loan money, and that is not going to control how you feel. You're not going to feel regret. You're not going to feel guilt. You're not going to feel down because you have the emotional intelligence to elevate your emotions higher than everybody else. Everybody else is stressing over how they're going to try to pay grandma. You already made your testament. You already atoned. You already voiced what you were going to do or not going to do. Either be you had the money or you didn't. But you don't let that affect yourself. Man, you good? I know you couldn't donate to grandma. No, I'm good, bro. Grandma dead. We can't change that. I'm not going to feel guilt behind that. Why I use death? That's the one thing that's hard for a lot of people to really separate the way I just did and understand where I'm coming from. This is not about mourning. It's about a situation surrounding someone's death that you have to make a decision on. Because at the same time, I would tell anybody to never jeopardize your family's well-being when someone died. I don't care who it is. I hate to say it, family. Woo! This is a rough one. This is a rough one. I'm gonna tell you like this: do not put yourself in financial hardship when someone dies. Don't do it. They are dead. They are gone. It's kind of like when people spend $50,000 to get married, and then a year later you get divorced. You still got $50,000 to handle. Because here's the thing. You know that you are at a critical point in your finances right now. And you go ahead and you take out a loan or you take money out of savings and you pay for that burial instead of letting the state bury them. You want to buy her a nice headstone, a nice casket. They are dead. They're never coming back. But mentally, emotionally, you want to feel like this physical casket will somehow make her rest better for her spirit, which makes no sense. I'm going somewhere, family. So now your family is being affected by the emotional decision, the way how you feel, and put your whole entire family in jeopardy. You put them in jeopardy financially. We're talking about utilities, food, water, taking Tyrone to the soccer game. I don't know. But you put your whole family at risk because it was a hard decision to make. And granted, no one's having conversations like this. But these are the conversations, I promise you, family, that will help elevate your emotions. And I said very early in the broadcast, I said, there's going to be times where you need to talk to somebody, and then there's times where you have to really exercise your emotional intelligence. Because emotional intelligence is just a fancy term for, emotional intelligence is a fancy term for tolerance. How much can you tolerate? That's right. How much can you tolerate? Because when we really talk about emotional intelligence, I'm just looking at different stuff, how they have all these topics on it and how they're breaking it down. Like the way you will perceive emotions, the first step in understanding emotions is to perceive them accurately. Remember I told you before? Perception. That you can perceive someone's emotions accurately. And of course, that means understanding nonverbal signs and body language and facial expressions. You have to understand all that stuff if you want to perceive the particular situation correctly. Then you remember the control portion? You had to really start thinking about cognitive activity that really is shaping your next decision within the control. How you interpreting that? How you looking at it? How you're reasoning with it? And through these very split seconds, milliseconds, there is a wide variety of different meanings that is coming to your brain. But here's the control part. All these different meanings, all these different responses, all these different reactions. Which one are you going to ride with? The control and manage phase, right? How you going to control it? How you going to manage it? How you going to really manage the way you respond and control it at the same time? To me, that's the most important thing, family. I'm not going to lie to you. So like I said before, to make it very, very simple, emotional intelligence is just the ability to perceive a situation, the way you look at a situation, how you shape a situation, and then control the cognitive activity of all the thoughts and meanings and reasoning and understandings and comprehensions in your mind. And as you're controlling it, you manage the correct response for the situation. And if you're positive like me, but also somewhat flawed, no one's perfect. You use that time to be positive, or as I said, I'm flawed, because I think emotional intelligence is somehow use passive aggressiveness and saying something that could be malicious, could be nasty, but it comes off as passive aggressive as you would want it to be. Oh man, that's kind of passive aggressive. Oh, not a big deal, man. Listen, let's sign this contract and let's keep it moving. All right, man. But if I would have said, man, fuck you. But if I would have said something like, man, we can do it, but you say something real slick. You get what I'm saying? That's very passive aggressive. But you can still have that emotional intelligence about being a passive aggressive and still accomplish some things. I'm just saying it's not always a good thing to use it, majority of the time, because then that starts problems. You have to use it as a release mechanism in some sense. That's all, family. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. Nice to see you again, Chris. Appreciate you, brother. I'm glad you're doing well. Many blessings to you. I hope you get all the help that you need, brother. And again, I just want to let you know that you are not alone. You guys have a great and wonderful day. I'll see you on the next one. I'm out.